Hola mis amigos y bienvenidos a una presentación sobre verbos de cambio radical. If you're literally translating this term, these would be radical change verbs, but don't worry, they're not radical, they're not really crazy. It's just a different type of verb, a different pattern of verb that we haven't looked at before, and I'm excited to share it with you. Bien, so verbos de cambio radical, in English we call these stem changing verbs or spelling change verbs. The deal is that the spelling change happens in the stem of the verb, in the root of the verb. So just really quickly, ¿qué es un infinitivo? What is an infinitive? Hopefully you know, but I use that term a good bit and it worries me if people aren't sure what I'm talking about. So just to clarify, an infinitivo in español is one of those words that ends in AR, ER, or IR. It's the most basic form of a verb. And in English, infinitives start with to. So to sing, to dance, to write, etc. Those are all infinitivos. And for the purposes of this lesson, we're going to be really focusing on some verbos especiales, which are verbos de cambio radical, stem changing verbs. And there are three types. We have E to IE, we have O to UE, and we have E to I. So we'll be learning about those in this presentation. Mali, in getting started, I would like to warm you up by just encouraging you to visualize shoes and boots. I promise I have not completely lost my mind at this point. There will be some method to my madness, but start out by dreaming about shoes and boots. Bien? So back to verbos de cambio radical. I'm going to give you your first example of a stem changing verb, and this is an E to IE verb, okay, where E changes to IE. The example I'm going to start with is cerrar. That might be a new infinitive to you. We have not talked about it this semester. Cerrar means to close, and this is what it looks like when we conjugate it in the present tense. Cierro, cierras, cierra. Cerramos, cerráis, cierra. So let's just talk through what's happening here first. It's a regular AR verb in the present. So that's why you see o, as, a, amos, ais, ang for the endings. But now, this new concept, it's also a stem changer. Since it's an E to IE stem changer, the E has changed to IE in several forms of the verb. So we have cierro, cierras, cierra, and over here in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form, it's cierran. But you notice that there's no stem change for the nosotros form, and there's no stem change for the vosotros form. So that's an important thing you're going to need to keep in mind about stem changers. The stem changes, in this case from E to IE, in every form except for nosotros and vosotros. Hence, my suggestion to be daydreaming about shoes and boots. You can draw a shoe or a boot around the forms that change. In other words, the stem changes within the boot. Cierro, cierras, cierra, and cierran. Outside the boot or the shoe, there is no stem change. Are you wowed by my artistic abilities? Bien, isn't that the cutest little shoe in the world? It does not provide a lot of support, but it has a really cute bow, I think. Bien, so that's your first stem changing verb, cerrar. It's an E to IE stem changer. Vale, let's take a look at a variety of stem changing verbs that you're going to need to memorize, that you're going to need to learn. So the E to IEs I want you to learn from your text are cerrar, which we just did, comenzar. It's the E in the middle that changes to IE. There's only one E in there, so only one thing that could change to IE. Empezar also means to begin or start. You've got two options to express that idea. Entender, to understand. Pensar, to think. Perder is to lose or to miss, like to lose something. That's pretty clear. It's missing in terms of like missing a train or missing class. It's not the kind of miss like when you miss someone that you love. That's a different verb that we won't get into right now. And preferir is to prefer. So this is the E that changes to IE and preferir. Bien. And finally, querer, which is one that you may have seen previously. It's a pretty common verb in Espanol. Querer, which is to want or to love, actually. Vale. Looking at some O to UE verbs that come right from your text as well. These change from O to UE. Dormir, encontrar, jugar. I know that does not have an O in it, and I said we were doing O to UE. This one happens to change from U to UE, but it's basically the only one that works like that. So we're just going to sneak it in here with the O to UEs and pretend. Mostrar, which is to show. Poder, which is to be able. We use that verb to express what we can do. Recordar, to remember, and volver, to return. So first off, you need to treat all of these infinitives as vocabulary so that if I give you the English, you can recall the Spanish. There are all kinds of tricks you could use to remember some of these, like when something commences, it starts. A commencement exercise is a new beginning. Pensar, when you're pensive, you're thinking or thoughtful. Preferir is pretty straightforward, for to prefer. Dormir, when something is in a dormant state, or if you stay in a dormitory, you might be sleeping. To find something is to encounter it. When you show someone how to do something, you might give a demonstration, mostrar. Okay? Poder is really close to the word power, which is when you're able to do something. When you remember something, you have a record of it in your mind. And finally, people always return safely if they drive a Volvo, right? That's how I always remember that one, because Volvos are supposed to be very safe cars, so you will return safely. Just a few tricks that might be helpful to you in remembering those stem changing verbs. So let's start out by practicing. I would like you to try each of these infinitives and making it agree with the given subject. So you're going to treat ER, AR, IR endings just like you always have. The only thing you have to take into account is the stem change for all the forms inside the boot. So pause and give those a try. And now here are the answers. Pierde, queremos. Note that the nosotros form doesn't change, so it's queremos. Muestro, vuelves, prefieren, and empieza. Okay, so that's just a little warm up to starting to get to know stem changers. When you're ready to take it to the next level, here is another kind of practice. This time I'm giving you the infinitive in English. This is what I want you to really be able to do. That last one was on the easy side. De nada, but we're cranking it up a little bit now. I'm giving you the infinitives in English this time, and you're going to make them agree with the subject that I've given you. Bien? So take a pause, and then you can check yourself. Here are your answers. Puedo. Notice that for número dos, the subject is we, so there's no stem change. It's outside the boot, so we have pensamos, duerme, entienden, pierdes, quiere, and then another we. The stem does not change for we. Recordamos. Vale? So hopefully that gives you an idea of how you're doing so far. A little more I wanted to point out to you about verbos de cambio radical. I mentioned jugar, which is actually a U to UE stem changer. We use jugar for playing sports, for playing games. Yo juego al tenis. But then, of course, just like the others, no stem change for the nosotros form. Lia y yo jugamos al hockey. Okay? And I also briefly mentioned as I introduced the vocabulary that both comenzar and empezar, they're both E to IE stem changers, and they both mean to begin or to commence. Okay? Bien, so los niños comienzan a correr a las 9, or Alicia empieza a estudiar. Often we start to do things in Espanol, so you can follow the verb with a and an infinitive. That might be a structure that you find interesting or helpful to use. Más sobre verbos de cambio radical. Pensar literally is to think, and you can also use it to talk about your future plans. As in, pienso ir a la fiesta de Ramón el sábado. I'm thinking about going, or I'm planning to go to the party of Ramón, Ramón's party. What if I asked you all a question like this? ¿Piensan ustedes estudiar en casa o en la biblioteca mañana? How would you actually answer that one? I'm talking to ustedes. ¿Piensan ustedes? Maybe think about that for a moment. Oh, don't you love my puns? Bien. So a good answer there would start with pensamos. We are thinking of. We are planning to. Pensamos maybe estudiar en la biblioteca mañana, for example. Yeah? Vale. As you get warmed up with these, a great idea would be to engage in some writing or in some conversation with these verbs. So I'm giving you just a nice list of questions. I've called them charla, which is a chat or a conversation, but you can practice these in writing as well. What I would encourage you to do first off is to figure out if you understand the question and then endeavor to answer it using the verb and the tense from the question. You know by now that's always what I want you to do. Answer using the verb and the tense from the question. So those are some questions to think about that you can incorporate into your practice and study. And then here are some possible answers. So I'll let you come back to those if you're interested in using that for some practice later. But it's some really solid practice using the stem changers that I've talked about so far. So we've talked about E to IE, we've looked at some O to UEs, and we have one more type of stem changers now, E to I, verbs that change E to I. Here's a good example of one, repetir, which is to repeat. It's an E to I stem changer. And so it looks like this, repito, repites, repite, repetimos, repetís, repeating. Okay, so it does the exact same thing. It changes E to I in every form except for nosotros and vosotros. In other words, it changes in all the forms except for the ones outside the shoe or the boot. So, and keep in mind too, I don't focus on vosotros, you all form, that informal you all that's used exclusively in Spain. So really, as long as you can remember not to change the nosotros form for all of these, you should be in good shape. Bien, so, and just some more lovely artwork for you. Bien, this time I got a little fancier with my shoe or my boot. You might notice that this one is a high-heeled kind of thing. Well, maybe more of a pump, but at any rate, to help you remember that the stem changes inside of the boot. Bien? Just a couple other infinitives that you should be aware of that change E to I. There are just a few. Pedir, conseguir, repetir, seguir, and that was it. Bien, a really short little list for the E to I, so not too much to keep up with there. Bien. I did want to show you seguir because it's got a little something special going on. It changes E to I throughout the boot, like I mentioned before, but there's no U in the yo form. There's no need to get into why at this point, but just be aware that the yo form is just sigo, S-I-G-O. There's no U involved in there. Bien? Vale. Let's put all this together with some práctica de todos los verbos de cambio radical. So let's start with these four. You can pause the presentation. You're going to be challenged to recall the meaning of the verbs, as in to ask for, to lose, to return, etc., and then to make those infinitives agree with the subject. So there are four here, and then there are four on the next slide as well. And here you have the answers to those. Bien, pido, pierde, volvemos, entiendes, duermen, quiero, conseguimos, consigue. Muchas gracias. I hope this has been a good intro to stem changers for you. Good luck as you start into your tarea on this topic. And as always, just let me know if you have questions I can help with. Hasta luego. Ciao.